Today, I want to answer one of the most common questions I get from people, from subscribers and from others that I talk to about food preparation and especially long-term storage, is how do you do it when you live paycheck to paycheck? I'm Evan Rowell, and this is Critical Thinking about storage on a budget. Okay, I'm here to answer that question and how you can do this on a budget. But before I do, I know that there's a lot of people out there that would go, are you kidding, Evan? You want me to eat that? You want me to freeze dry that? You want me to do this and that and the other? And that's what you want me to have as backup food storage for, long term? And my classic answer to that is, yeah, I do want you to do this if you need to do it on a budget, because this is basically the only way that you're going to survive. And I want you to ask yourselves, do you really think that when the time comes and you're starving to death and the stores have been Venezuelanized and you have to rely on your long-term food supplies to survive, do you really think that you're not going to be grateful to have what I'm about to show you? So that's the mindset I want you to get into. I'm not doing this to make it appetizing for you right now. I'm doing this to make it affordable for you right now. And come to think of that, you see what I have here? Inside this package is food, top ramen, with meat protein, eggs, and vegetables inside this bag. And this is less than $3 to make this bag, and it'll feed 4 adults. Okay, so this is what is going to be the end goal here, is to show you how you can make these, and not just with top ramen. I want you to look at what I have here on this table. I've got hamburger helper, I've got rice-a-roni, I've got, of course, top ramen, but I've also got one of my favorites there, of course, is macaroni and cheese. I've got all kinds of boxed products here that don't need freeze drying. They just need embellishing so that when you put them into a package like this, when you go to open it up and make it, you've got something that has meat protein, you've got something that has carbohydrates, you've got something that has vegetables. The only thing it's going to really lack is oils, which you should have in your food rotation already, and fruit. And you can even make these with fruit. You got to be inventive, and I'm going to show you how I do this right now. In my preparations, what I do is I start buying these a little at a time. Now, on this table, like I say, nothing on this table costs more than $2 a box, and most of it costs about $1 a box. The rice-a-roni that I have here is $1 a box. These macaroni and cheese dinners I have is $1 a box. And then I have gravy packs here. I'll show you how to use these. And these are, about 80 cents a piece. So you'll be collecting that. And while you're collecting that, you're using your freeze dryer to prepare to make these, okay? So what I've done here is I used my freeze dryer and I made one batch. I did some corn, I did some peas, I did some carrots and peas, and I did another one here that has carrots, peas, corn, and string beans. Okay, so I did all that in a batch. And I also, after I did that, I did some onions, I did some whole milk, and I don't use skim milk. If we're going to do this, generally you need whole milk, and whole milk freeze dries very well. But if you don't want to freeze dry whole milk, I found this, and I didn't even know they make this. They don't sell it in Walmart or any place else like this, but this is Nestle's. It's called Nido, and this is dry whole milk. Now this can here will make about, I don't know, I think it was like 10 gallons of milk, whole milk. But it does cost you about $45, okay? It was 10 or 12 gallons. And all things considered, the cost of making this much dried milk with your freeze dryer, you'd spend more in energy costs and everything. So I recommend this. But for now, I do have whole milk that I dried myself. And I also have dried bell peppers and eggs, okay? Now, when I freeze dry eggs, I separate them, the yolks from the whites. And here's a picture of what the trays look like. What you're looking at here is 96 eggs. with the yolks separated from the whites, and I freeze dried those in one batch, and I use that. So it takes some time to gather all this stuff together, like I've got here, and get it ready to make these economy packs. You know what I call them, is economy packs, so that you can actually build up food storage. But aside from that, you still do leftovers. If you're going to make a pot of spaghetti, make a big pot of spaghetti, and then family eats out of it. Put the rest of it in a freeze dryer tray, freeze dry it, and package it up. And if you'll do things like that, I think you'd be surprised at just how fast you'll be able to build up a food storage that you can fall back on in hard times. But one of the things that makes this type of stuff really expensive, of course, is the meat. And I'm going to show you how to prepare meat, but let me explain something first, okay? I'm going to tell you a story. It's something that happened to me about 50 years ago, over 50 years ago. I remember when I was in my teens, and my father came home, and he had a cardboard box. It was about 12 inches, cubed, and he was just excited about it. He was just excited about it because he thought he had found something that would help him with his food budget for his family. And I've got 9 siblings. There were 10 of us all together. And my parents weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination. And so keeping food on the table could be difficult. But anyhow, my father was very excited about this. And I opened up the box and I looked down inside of it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, what's this? And what it turned out being was soy protein. Okay, it looked like granola. And this was 50 years ago, so they've been doing this for a long time. And my father thought that was going to be our new hamburger because it had the proteins and it had the calories and it has everything in it. Long story short, soy protein is not good for you. Okay, and anyhow, he tried one way, he tried the other way, he tried every way he could to make this soy protein work in our family. Number one, it tasted terrible. Nobody liked it. Number two, it wouldn't patty. It wouldn't stick together. When you got it wet, it would fall apart. Even when he mixed it with a little bit of hamburger or something like that and then tried to fry it, he ended up with a pile of what looked like dog food. And so I think maybe he bought one more, but that was it. That went by the wayside. That just didn't work out. Now, the reason that I bring that up, I'll get to that here in a minute, but not too long ago I made a video called Bread and Other Useless Freeze Dryer Endeavors. And in that video, at about minute 18, I'm talking about hot dogs. And what do you do with hot dogs? And I experimented and I tried to figure out a way that I could freeze dry hot dogs and reconstitute them. And it was an utter failure because the only way that you can freeze dry hot dog meat and reconstitute it is if you grind it up first. And then you grind it up, then you have to boil it, and you have to cook it and boil it to boil all the grease out of it and yada, yada, yada. And then try to flavor it again and then rehydrate it and try to stick it in a hot dog bun. It was just an utter failure. And you can go back and watch that video if you want, because in that video I say, I've given up on it. I've given up on it. But then, a little while later, one of my subscribers shot me a comment that says, Evan, when I go to the store, sometimes my grocer will have hot dogs that he put on sale because they're approaching their expiration date. And he says, I can go down and buy 10, 15, 20 pounds of hot dogs, and if I grind them up the way that you showed me and freeze dry it, it may not be a hot dog, but it's protein. A hot dog has between 4 and 5 grams of protein in it. And you can use that, and I can freeze dry that, and I can put it in a bag. And when the time comes, I can open up the bag, and I can use that hot dog meat in any of several different ways. And and I thought about it, and this is the actual bag of hot dog protein that I used in that previous video. I still didn't know what to do with it. But when I read his comment, I had all kinds of whistle bells going off in my head about wondering if I had come full circle with soy protein. Soy protein was meant to try to extend the protein content of food, and people never did like it. And to this day, even with the commercial soy burgers and stuff you can buy frozen in a pack, there's been great improvement. But it's not something that is easy for the average person to do, because you have to know how to spice it, and you have to know how to mix it, and you have to know how to put all the ingredients in it. And these companies aren't going to be too anxious to tell you how they do it. So you either have to figure it out yourself and then go along with the flavor, or not. So this has been the challenge right here. I had already figured out how to do it, and so what I want to do is I want to go upstairs and I'm going to prepare a bunch of this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to prepare 15 pounds of meat. And what you do is I will grind up hot dogs, and I went down to Walmart and I was able to find a brand of hot dogs that were $3 for 3 pounds. It was $3.20 some odd cents for a 3-pound package. Okay, so that's $1 a pound. And when you consider that beef is costing anywhere from $6 to $8 a pound, chicken is still over $2 a pound, and pork is $4 to $5 a pound. If you want to stick with just that kind of meat protein, well, it kind of defeats the whole idea of wanting to do things on a budget. So let's go upstairs. I'm going to show you how to create this right here, how I figured out how you can create hot dog meat so that it will reconstitute, so that it's not all dried up and solid and tough and everything else like that. And so with that, let's go upstairs. Okay, so here we are in my kitchen where I'm going to prepare 15 pounds of meat protein, incorporating 6 pounds of hot dogs. I've got 3 here, and I've got 2 more packages and 3 each there. I've got 2 pounds of chicken, maybe a little bit more, 2 1/4. I've got 2 pounds of stew beef, and I've got 2 pounds of pork here. And I've also got some water boiling here. And this will all be done with my KitchenAid meat grinder. Now, the hot dogs will go, I will mix the hot dogs, 3 pounds, with 2 pounds of chicken. Okay. Now, all of this isn't going to go on these pans because I don't want any more than 12 pounds on the pans. So I will take, when I'm done, and I'll separate out a portion of that to do on the next batch in one of my pans. So anyhow, let's get started with that. I'm going to start with the pork, and what I'll do is I'll take a few hot dogs and turn this on, and I'll start grinding hot dog meat. Now, hot dogs, the lowly hot dog, each one of these hot dogs has 4 grams of protein in it. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to put in some of the pork, and I'm going to put in a couple more hot dogs, and I'm going to continue on that way. So give me just a minute, and I'll finish this up, and we'll go from here. Okay, I've completed the hot dogs and the pork. Now there's 5 pounds of meat here that costs roughly about $11.50, $12. Okay, so that's about $2.25 per pound for meat protein. And when you consider the fact that that ground up, or that cubed steak right there costs, if memory serves me right, it was about $7 a pound. Okay, it was over $7.58 a pound or something. So being able to put together 5 pounds of meat here, and I mix this all together. I mix it up real good. And then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to boil it. Okay, now I have this water here. I'm going to turn it back up. And we're just going to put this in there. Now you don't have to worry about this stuff sticking together, because it won't. When it starts to boil, it will granulate up, and it'll begin to look just like the soy protein that I spoke of earlier, that my father brought home and that he was so excited about. So I'm going to put that in there. Now that's only going to have to cook for about 15 minutes. Okay, so while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up that one more package of these hot dogs, and I'm going to do the beef. Okay, so give me a few minutes, and we'll get to that point. All right, it's been 15 minutes, maybe 20, that this has been boiling at a rolling boil. It took a few minutes to get up to where it was boiling, but as I mentioned before, I put it in great big balls, but this stuff comes out. It is absolutely separate. There's no sticking together or anything like that. So the next thing we've got to do is we've got to pour it in the strainer and rinse it. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, first you turn off the heat. And we'll pour it in this strainer. There's quite a bit of it. It does fill that strainer up all the way. Okay. So now we turn this on and make sure we get hot water here. You don't want to rinse this with cold water. You need the initial rinse has to be with hot water, because if you rinse it with cold water before you rinse it with hot water again, you're going to coagulate that grease. It's going to get hard and it'll make it difficult to rinse it off. So I've got good hot water here now, and I am going to move this around, kind of stir it. And I'm going to do this for a few minutes, okay? So give me a few minutes. I'll be right with you. Okay, I've been stirring it for about 2 to 3 minutes. The water coming out the bottom there is relatively clear. I still get a little bit of the meat dust, but the water itself is no longer clouded with oil. I'm going to go ahead, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these little bowls here, and I'm going to put just a bit in there, unseasoned, unmessed with or anything. I'm going to do that with all 3 types of meat that I do, and I'm doing that to prove a point here, and I'll get to that the next portion of this video. So now what I need to do is, while this was boiling, I went ahead and ground up the beef, 2 pounds of beef, and maybe a little more, about 2.5 pounds of beef, and ground it up with the hot dogs, and I sliced up that chicken so that it would fit into the meat grinder. Okay, so that's the step that you want to do now. I'm also going to refill this with water and get it to a rolling boil so that I can put this in here. Okay, so let me get to that point where I've got this pulled out and I'm ready to put it into a pan, and I'll see you in just a second. All right, now to this point, I've got some more water on the boil. I'm going to want to bring it to a boil. I have completely rinsed this pork and hot dog mixture, and I will tell you that this is about as bland as it's going to get. So what I do to help with that is I've got here some chicken rub. It's a favorite of mine, and I'm just going to salt. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take that shaker top off so that I can get more of it out of there. But I'm going to salt this, and it's going to be over salted, like I mentioned before. That's a lot of that. Then I take that and I mix it in there. Now what I've done here is I brought my kitchen scale up here because I want to put exactly 3 pounds of meat on that tray. So let's go ahead and turn that on. And it's zeroing. Okay, so that's 0. We're going to go ahead and start putting these on there. See, that's a pound right there. That's 1 pound and 11 ounces. I might be able to put this whole thing on there without going over 3 pounds. That's a lot, and this is saying I've only got 2 pounds 11 ounces. But I don't, because of the bulk, I don't think I'm going to put that much on there. I might only put 2.5 pounds. See, there's 2.5 pounds right there. Now, I've done this before. I know that I can put a lot on here, but boy, that was quite a bit. So anyhow, that's ready. That's going to go in the freezer. Now, I had some taken out here that didn't have any seasonings on it. And I'm going to have to take this and put it in a different bowl. Take that and put it in the freezer. I'm going to go ahead and put this into boiling water as soon as it's rolling now. And then we're going to go ahead and do the chicken. So bear with me. We're going to get it to that point. So here we are. I went ahead and finished up with the other three. I have the pork, I have the beef, and I have the chicken here. And then that little bit that wouldn't fit into the pans I found would fit into the fourth pan. So I've got 1/3 pork, 1/3 beef, and 1/3 chicken. So the total weight after we've cooked it and rinsed it and dried it and did everything else that we need to do, I mean, I haven't freeze dried it yet, but it's about 10 pounds. There's about 2.5 pounds of meat on each one of these trays, and that's exactly what you want. Now, remember I said I was going to take a little bit of this meat, each one of the three, and put it aside here in these little bowls so that I could drive home a point. This here is the pork mixed with the hot dogs, and it hasn't been seasoned yet. That's about as bland can be. Okay? So, is the beef going to be any different? No. If I was blindfolded, you could feed me. I could take a bite of any one of these, and I wouldn't be able to tell you which one it is. Here's the chicken. Same difference. Not even the texture. Now, before I put these in the trays, I did season them, and I seasoned them heavily, okay? With the pork, I put in some steak seasoning and a little bit of chicken in a mixture of my favorite seasonings. In the beef, I put in this here. It's just the Grill Mates Smoky Montreal steak. I mixed quite a bit of it, probably half that bottle or more, in with that steak before I put it in the trays. And then with the chicken, I just did salt and pepper and garlic salt, okay? Well, I'm going to add a little bit of this Montreal chicken to it right now. So I put a nice, healthy, what you might call too much, but I'll guarantee you, when whoever starts cooking this gets hold of it, they're going to be grateful that you put this much seasoning in it, because you really did destroy the flavor of this protein. But that's all this is. This is a protein base. This is what you want to start out with. This is what you want to get creative with. You can add anything you want to it, any seasonings you want to it. As a matter of fact, I think they even have a hot dog seasoning that you can order, but I'm not, too thrilled with it, so I don't use it. But now these are going to go in the freezer, and like I say, there's 10 pounds here. It started out as 15. I want to show you this picture. This is a picture of the chicken and the hot dogs, the water that came out of it before I rinsed it. And I wanted you to see how much oil and how much brown and how much other stuff came out of it. So we do take a lot of oil out of this meat, and we do that so that we can prep it, and I'll show you exactly what's going to happen. Now these are going to have to go into the freezer, then they're going to have to go into the freeze dryer, and so when these are done and come out of the freeze dryer, I'll go downstairs and I'll finish up this video. But for you, it's going to be like right now. All right, we're back downstairs. It took about 58 hours to completely freeze dry those pans of meat, which is about normal because the meat was kind of heavy, it was dense. But before I go any further, I need to reiterate the importance, if you have a freeze dryer, that you really need to have a food dehydrator also. Okay, they're not very expensive. And the reason being is when I took these out of the freeze dryer, although the freeze dryer was telling me that they were finished, it was still a little bit cold right in the middle, right on the bottom. And it wasn't very much. It was probably 98% done. But I did have to take these out, and I put them on my dehydrator. And it didn't take very long. It took about 6 hours. And it was completely dry. It was arid dry. So remember that. If you have a freeze dryer, once the food has lost over 90% of its moisture in your freeze dryer, it's perfectly okay to take it out. You don't have to add more time on the freeze dryer. When I take something out of the freeze dryer, I like to get it defrosting. But it's perfectly okay. It doesn't hurt the food. It doesn't do anything negative to it. You put it on your dehydrator and let it take care of that last little bit of moisture. Okay, so that's what I did with these. So it's been several days, and what I've done here is I've put all my embellishments on this side, along with the onions, the milk, the bell peppers, and the butter powder. Some of these the directions ask for butter and milk, and so, but I don't freeze dry my own milk. It's just too difficult to do, so I buy the Augustin Farms butter powder. It's a little bit bland because it doesn't have the oil in it. They take the butter fat out of it. It's the only way you dry it. But they take the butter fat out, and what's left, it works, but it's not quite up to snuff when it comes to flavor. So I've got everything set up here. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead. I'm going to pause here, and I'll be right back. But I'm going to start packaging all of this up and getting it set up in the interest of time, so you don't have to watch me do that. Get it all set up so I can show you how I put these things together. I'll explain why it is I like to use freezer bags, and we'll go from there. So give me just a minute and we'll get done. All right, so that took a little longer than a few minutes. I have bagged up most of the product that I have, and I took and vacuum packed it in my freeze dryer, which always does a heck of a good job. But you don't have to use your freeze dryer. These don't have to be packed that hard. The reason that I did it was because I have built a inline vacuum filter to remove particulate, because I do use my freeze dryer quite often as a vacuum packer. And if you'll take a look at this picture, you'll see what happens to the oil if you're not real careful. So I designed a vacuum packer. I'm going to put it online here pretty soon and show it to people, show it to you, and provide you a way to build one for yourself. But anyhow, so I took a little bit of extra time. It's 1 o'clock in the morning right now. It took me about maybe 4 hours to get all this done. But anyhow, I have avoided packaging up one of each of these. Everything that you see here, you'll find one here. Now, I'm not going to bag them all up and seal them and take a lot of time. I want to kind of avoid that so this video doesn't drag on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one right here. This is my hamburger helper. And you'll see that I have, the hamburger helper calls for milk and butter. So I have dried milk, and I have the Augustin Farms butter in a bag here. I have meat. There's about the equivalent of a pound of meat in here. Okay, it doesn't weigh a pound right now, but when it's rehydrated it will. And then of course you have the contents of the hamburger helper. And then I have some peas and carrots. And how this is going to go into the bag is real simple. I start out with, first off, I'm poking a hole in this bag here so that when I vacuum pack it, the bag, that's what, I want to do this one too. I just poke one little tiny hole right up here in the corner. You don't need any more than that. You just want the air to be able to escape. So once you do that, now I've put the oxygen absorber in the bag with the meat, so the oxygen absorber is already taken care of. I've already filled out the bag, the Mylar bag, and I've written instructions enclosed on this one, and they are right here, and I'll throw that in there too. So this one, really, that hamburger helper, that was about $1.40. There's about maybe 75 cents worth of meat here. Okay, not really that much. And I tuck that right in there in the bag. Then I'll take the milk and make sure that the bag is open. Okay, because that's what you want for your to vacuum to release the air. I'll put that in sideways. This one's the same way. I make sure it's open a little bit, but before I put that one in, I'm going to slide the sauce pack in, and it's going to go right along the top. And then the vegetables will go in like this. Now that bag is really full, but as you can see, it still is going to allow me to seal it. Okay, so that one I'll seal and vacuum pack. The second one I got is the rice-a-roni. It's this. Oh, and by the way, something I do here, you don't have to do this, but I buy these little packs of drink mix, and I'll put 4 of them in there, and so I'll toss those in too. And I've done that with every one of these bags. They're only about 15 cents a piece. So if I put 4 of them in there, that adds 60 cents to it, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that at all, okay? But I like to do it simply because I know that whoever's going to open that bag is going to appreciate having those in there, okay? Oh, and of course, we want the instructions to go down in there. You just slide those down in. Okay, the rice-a-roni. Now, these boxes, I used to take the rice out of these boxes, but I don't anymore because I found out that if you take the box and lay it down and crush those corners, you're going to lose a little bit of the rice there. But that box will actually begin to crush, and you can just leave the rice right in the box. Okay, and it doesn't matter if a little bit comes out, it'll come out anyhow. And I'll take the bag and I'll put the rice-a-roni in it. And if it leaks out, you know, whoever uses this is going to see that a little bit has leaked out. You put the meat in, tuck it in right along the side. You have to make sure, if you're going to use the smaller bags, and this is a smaller bag, that you have to tuck it in pretty good. And I put 4 of these in there on top of that. And then for this one, I have peas and corn with carrots and string beans. Now the instructions say that this goes on the side. They can put it in the rice-a-roni if they want, or they can keep it on the side. Either way, there's your vegetables. Okay, see how that packs in there? It packs in there real good. And it will be able to seal. So now, let's look at this one here. This is the cheesy, the chicken broccoli. And that's this one here. Now I like this one here because it doesn't require any milk or butter. And a lot of these do. And I'll show, there's a couple. This one does, that one does. But this one doesn't. And I do this the same way. I'll take this and I'll crush those edges. Okay. And then for this one, I know that that's in a pack in there. I'll stick a hole. And that will allow for vacuum sealing. So I'll take this and I'll slide it in there, push it off to one corner. I'll take the meat. Now there's about 2 pounds of meat here because this is a meat intensive meal. So I put probably the equivalent about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds, and I will slide that in there. Yeah, this one's going to be a little tougher because I have to slide it on top of that box. There's always a way to get it in there if you're careful. It can be a little tough sometimes though. So I'll put it on top of that box. See, there, that slides right in there. And then I'll take the corn, make sure that it's open, hold it over a little bit, and this will sit in there just like that. I'll toss these in. Okay, and there is that cheesy macaroni. Okay, and again, that will seal very well. Put that down here. The next one I have here is macaroni and cheese. I've listed it, macaroni and cheese with meat, milk and butter and vegetables. Okay, that's this one here. And I got meat. This one calls for the milk and butter. So I have the dehydrated whole milk in here and the Augustin Farms butter in there. And I'll open that up a little bit. And again, all of these have the oxygen absorbers already in them. And because this is going to remain open a little bit, this will fit in there real good. Now, same trick with this. I used to take these out of the boxes and put them in bags and everything, but I kind of, on accident, discovered that if you hit these corners down, that's all it takes. And that will slide into the Mylar bag. So there's your macaroni and cheese. Okay, now this one has the meat. I'll slide it in right along the side. Okay, but it also has the milk and the butter. I'll put it on top, and I'll just slide everything in there. Okay, now with this one, because I had it and it was no big deal, I went ahead and put a 1/2 cup of dried shredded cheddar cheese in with the mix. That's just kind of a little perk. And then I've got a bunch of vegetables here, freeze-dried vegetables, and we'll stick those in there. And then, of course, these 4. And this takes a bigger bag. So I've already filled it out. We'll put the vegetables in right there, and I'll put that cheese right on top of the vegetables. And again, that fits in the bag. And then you can see I've got the specialized instructions in here. You have to tell the user to, modify the instructions on the box to include the fact that you've got dehydrated meat and other ingredients in here that are going to use up water. So you have to add a little bit of extra water to that. All right, now here's one I really like right here. I'm going to do this one right now. This is mashed potatoes with gravy, meat, and vegetables. Okay, now what I did is I've already done one of these. That is these Hungry Jack mashed potatoes. Okay, and I used 1/2 box in here, and there's 1/2 box over there. So using a larger bag, I'll put the mashed potatoes in there. Tuck them off to one side really good. Now for this one, I'm using 2 packs of brown gravy mix, and I've going to need to poke a little hole in the upper corner. No big deal. Doesn't have to be big, just a little bit of a pinhole. Brown gravy here. Okay. Let's see there. So after those mashed potatoes go in there, I'll go ahead and put, now these take a lot of milk and butter. So there's 2 cups of milk and butter here. Open up the top and push those in next to the mashed potatoes. Now the gravy, on the other hand, is going to take the meat, the brown gravy, and I've got some onions and butter here that will go into the gravy. So I'll stick this butter in there. Okay. And then the meat. Again, let's see, I don't think I put an oxygen absorber in that meat. So let's, these are 50 cc. I'll put about 3 of them in there real quick, and then I'll seal them back up. I thought I'd put an oxygen absorber in all the meat packets, but I guess I didn't do that one. So, leaving it open, I can tuck that in there. Then the brown gravy. Easy money. Okay, and again, that will seal and vacuum pack really well. This one here, this is the top ramen. I don't put any meat in this one, but I do put eggs. Okay, now something I want to tell you about the eggs. You notice that before I told you that I freeze dried the egg whites separate from the egg yolks. Egg yolks do not reconstitute really well when they're whole. Okay, egg whites do. Egg whites within a few minutes. So what you have to do with the egg yolks, if you're going to use them this way, is you have to crush them in the bag. And they crush really easy because when you freeze dry them, they freeze dry to a chalky, a light chalky consistency, and they will crush, very, very easy, even though they are completely dry. So I've got eggs in there, and what you want is you're going to make the top ramen, and you're going to add peas and eggs. And again, I'm going to want to poke a hole in both of these. So the peas these are peas and onions. And when I was a kid, I used to eat a lot of this with peas and onions and eggs. And so you have to crush these a little bit if you're going to put them in the bag. Not a lot, but you do have to break them up. Okay. Then I kind of crush them together. Open up the bag. And then these will slide inside of that bag really easy. Relatively speaking. Okay, tuck them all the way down to the bottom. Then I'll put the eggs in there. And there are oxygen absorbers inside the eggs. Okay, so I'm not worried about that. And then I roll up the peas, again, making sure the top is open. Roll the peas up a little bit and stick them down in there. Okay, now you saw that one before. This is exactly what I did to that one. I have top ramen in here. I have 2 bags, and it will seal very, 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 very well. Okay, we have one last one. This is this great value cheeseburger pasta skillet dinner. Okay, same thing applies. Just crush the corners of the box down, and you'll find that the lid will buckle up and the bottom will buckle up, and you're able to put this whole thing in that bag. Again, I'll poke a hole in the middle of it because I know that that bag in there is will hold its air without a hole. So now I can take this and put it in there. This one has a lot. Oh, by the way, I need to put the drink mix in that ramen. All right, this one has a lot of meat. Because again, this one's meat intensive. This is the cheeseburger pasta skillet dinner. This has twice the meat as any of the others, other than the other one of these. And it does have the oxygen absorbers in it. Open up the top a little bit, and I'll fold that. And, oh, this will go on top of that box. Okay. This, again, is the milk and the butter. Crack that top a little bit, and it will sit right there, and the meat will sit right there, and then we'll put these 4 in there. So there you have it. It took some doing, it took some preparation, but I have 21 meals here that will feed a minimum of 2 hearty eaters, adults, or it'll feed 4 to 6 light eaters, and it'll feed at least that many children. Okay, and all of this is done on a budget. I got 21 meals in here, all but 4 of them, the ramens, have meat in them. They all have vegetables in them. They all have the ability to help you survive. And this is about as on a budget as you're going to get. Okay, I'd like to be able to say that I could do this for, $1 or $2 a bag, but you can't. But with a little bit of planning and a little bit of thought processes every time you go to the store, don't think you're going to do it overnight, because you're not going to do it overnight. But if you do it slow and consistent, you'll be surprised that in a year, maybe a year and a half, you'll have a food storage, a supply in your home that will take care of your family for, a long time. It's not going to be gourmet, but it will be good. It's not going to be something that they have to choke down. Oh, and one more thing. For those of you who are wondering why in all of this I haven't used any imitation bacon bits, I want you to take a look at this picture. Now this might gross you out, but this picture that I'm going to show you is a piece of imitation bacon bit made out of soy product, textured soy, that is under a microscope. And to the naked eye, this looks absolutely dry. You can run your hands through it and everything, and it feels like granola or something, but it feels absolutely dry. But I put it under a microscope one time, took a picture of it, and I want you to take a look at it. Here it is. That cured me from ever eating textured soy imitation bacon bits again. Okay? From my standpoint, I would rather have a sugared drink, which I don't drink sodas anymore, but if I did, I would drink the sugared non-diet stuff because it's actually better for you. That's like changing seats in the Titanic. But that's better for you than the artificial sweeteners, the aspartame, and all the other crap that they put into supposedly diet drinks. And bacon's the same way. If I've got to have bacon in something, it's going to be real bacon. Okay, that people will go, oh, you can't. Bacon's bad for you. Oh, tell me about. Look at this picture again. Tell me what's bad for you. Look at all that grease. Look at all that oil. That is a bunch of garbage. So there you have it. There is 21 meals on a budget. I stretched 6 pounds of expensive meat into 15 pounds of budget meat using hot dogs. Now, I've eaten this before. It's not bad. Of course, I love macaroni and cheese, but I've had this meat in vegetables. I've had it in macaroni and cheese. I've had it in rice-a-roni, and it's all things considered, it's pretty good. Okay, and if you're hungry, it's delicious. So with that, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already, and like this video, and share it, okay? And also, if you have a mind to, visit my gallery. I always tell everybody to visit my gallery. I'm a professional photographer, and I like to hear what people say about my photography. So with that, I'll end it here. I'm Evan Rowell, and this is Critical Thinking about freeze drying on a budget.